Hey AONE fans, AJ here, and in this video we're going to learn a lot more about NetAlly, who they are, where they came from, and what they can do for us as network engineers. Hey AONE fans, AJ and Dan here, and today we're going to introduce you to NetAlly. And to do that, we've brought in a special guest, James Kahkoska, CTO of NetAlly. James, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Not too bad. I'm super excited to bring our fans to NetAlly. I think a lot of people are familiar with some of the tools out there available, but NetAlly really has brought a lot to the game. And so what can you tell us about NetAlly?
Well, we're an old company, but we're a new company, right? So in my case, my origins go back to 1995 when we sort of created the category of handheld network test, right? Thinking about 10 megabit Ethernet being around, just moving to 100 megabit token ring still in existence. And so for me, it's been the same product line for 25 years, basically, but numerous company name changes along the way.
And so let's go through some of those name changes, because I bet people are familiar with your roots, right, where you came from. They might not be familiar with NetAlly, but I bet they know where you guys came from.
Yeah, so I had, prior to actually getting to networking, I was at Hewlett-Packard in R&D for 15 years doing oscilloscopes and logic analyzers. Joined a small startup in 95. We were literally operating out of a strip mall, and we were called Forte Networks. We got acquired by Fluke. Fluke got purchased by Danaher, who was building a communications group. They're sort of a big, multinational group builder. And then after a while in the communications group space, Danaher decided that they didn't have an appetite for it, right? The valuations were too high. And so they were going to stay in their other sectors. So they then shelled us out, the communications group, to a company called NetScout. We were always the outlier in that product line, right? We had these handheld, custom-built testers, and everything else they did was rack-mounted, 1U, 5U boxes, fire-breathing, AC powered, nothing, off-the-shelf servers with a off-the-shelf NIC card kind of situation. But so it took about 2 to 3 years for NetScout to realize we weren't a good fit in any way, manufacturing, go-to-market, R&D, and so then we got sold out to a private equity firm, and that gave us a chance to actually carve out the company and really focus on our core competency, which was handheld network test, right? And really just have a company, and that's what we do, right? We weren't, at Fluke, we were always a little bit on the sidelines relative to cable test, which was their main media test, right? Mm-hmm. That was their main focus. And at NetScout, it was network application and network performance monitoring. So we've got about 3 years in this space, and I think anybody that's been following us can see that what that focus has brought, right? And just a series of products and new capabilities being brought to this space.
All right, James, thank you for that great introduction. I want to talk more. What problems does your tool solve for network engineers?
Yeah, well, it's a variety of problems. It kind of splits out across wired and Wi-Fi media. So on the wired side, you've got two media types, right? Fiber and copper. Fiber, it's just about getting lots of bandwidth through, doing performance testing. It's typically used on links between switches and between buildings and things like that. Usually longer distance or in data centers. On the wired side, what's been interesting to me is to see that the same cable that you could have installed 20 years ago that was carrying 10 megabit Ethernet now carries. Then it went to carrying 100. Then it went to carrying gig. Now it can carry N-base-T, right? 2.55 gig. In some cases, it can even carry 10 gig. And as if that wasn't enough, all that active signaling, at the same time, they've been jacking more and more power over it, right? So started out with 802.3 BT and 13 watts, right? And then AT, which is 25 watts, and now we're up to. I spoke wrong. Started out with what was the first PoE standard? Darn it.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I usually have those off the top of my head. Anyway, but started out at 13 watts, and then went to 25 watts, and then went to, now literally sourcing 90 watts at the.
Oh wow!
I didn't know it was
switch,
up that high.
right?
Yeah, I thought it was like in the 40s or something. But
yeah, no. In fact, it's and then they count for 20 watts of loss over the longest cabling, which would be 100 meters, and you basically get 71 watts at the endpoint, right? And so that's opened up a lot of applications, right? Digital lighting. At the same time, LEDs are getting more efficient, so now you can run an entire, trofer, typical fluorescent overhead lamp can now be LEDs and run off the switch, and it just creates a lot of dynamics, right? For in that particular space, right, the digital ceiling, it's suddenly you don't need to have a union electrician and a pre-designated plan of here's the wall switch and it goes to these things, and that's the level of control. You can control the individual lights because it's all digitally, and of course light spectrum, time of day, all the stuff. So it's been interesting to see PoE work its way. Of course, it started with phones, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which was and it's kind of funny. Cisco at the time, you had we were lucky to have one drop to an office, and they wanted to have a phone, right? And so, they knew that the adoption of VoIP would be slowed by requiring another AC outlet and a wall wart to power these phones, and so they created the first PoE. But since then it's gone into of course APs have really been driving the power the most lately, right? As you put more and more radios in the access points now with the tri-band 6 gigahertz 802.11ax APs, right? They're consuming north of 25 watts, and so it's been, PoE's been a huge enabler. The higher speeds have been of course enablers to replacing a lot of what would have it just gives you the ability to do these overlay networks. I think of security surveillance, for example. All these things that used to be a dedicated separate cable plant in a building, right? You used to have coax for security cameras, and maybe you had 2-wire for POTS for your telephone, and then you had whatever your data thing was. All that has collapsed onto there's so much capacity in terms of data networking that throwing some surveillance cameras up on, if they're putting out 2-3 megabit streams, no problem. You can run those even on 10 megabits. And so it's been, for us, it's just been fascinating to see all the ways that networking has been applied, right? It started out with just, I'm on my desktop and need to get my email, and now it's just literally powering buildings and badge accesses and HVAC and industrial and manufacturing and municipalities and transportation. And, the verticals just go on and so it's just been fascinating to watch, and even seeing within the wired media, now single pair Ethernet is the new up and comer there, right? So and that's enabling more applications in automotive and things like that, and so it's just been fascinating to see.
So James, to summarize what you just said, is that over the years, more and more services have kind of crept or snuck into the network. So now, a network engineer is not just responsible for data, but we have the security and the card readers and everything else that goes on in there. There's just so much going on in the wire. And so NetAlly is here to help us troubleshoot all these various issues. And what are some of the ways that NetAlly tools can do that for us?
So, as the network's gotten more complex, we try to break it down into root causes, right? And so we have a feature, for example, called AutoTest that really is about saving time. And within 10 seconds, you can validate, I'm getting power over the Ethernet, I'm linking these are the speeds, I'm on these VLANs, I'm connected to this particular switch, I'm getting an IP address or assuming a static IP, I can talk to the gateway router, and then I can hit whatever targets I want. And targets can be literally pulling a web page and validating the performance and connectivity connectivity. And so, a lot of it's about time, particularly with kind of, even before the Great Resignation, right? There was always a shortage of network qualified folks and churn in IT groups. And so having this sort of constant that every network gets the same treatment, independent of the person, independent of their skill level, independent of the location, really brings a consistency to operations. Another part of our product line is it's really about just all the dynamics in the market, right? A large percentage of our customers are managing, well more than one site. In fact, the average is 5 sites, right? Think of a school district, branch banking, healthcare, where they sucked all these doctors' offices in and all that, right? And so the ability for us to make the unit so it can be run remote, you could even send it out, trying to make them so drop dead simple that an office admin can plug the thing in and you can come in and do troubleshooting from afar, not have to drive across town or jump on a plane. And so remote access, collaboration, when you find problems, sharing it with partners, sharing it with vendors, whoever you need to escalate to. Having that baseline, knowing that, hey, when we were there last time, we saw these devices. Now there's 3 new devices that showed up. What are those, right? It's far beyond BYOD, right? Just I think a lot of people that are in these premises, everyone's an IT person now, right? Because I've got a gateway router at home, right? And so the ability to jump on Amazon and buy any piece of network gear and bring it into the office and plug it in, or hey, we want a game at lunch. I only got one port. I'm gonna plug what I think is I got this extra hub looking thing. I'll plug it in. Oh, it turns out it's serving up DHCP addresses. Now in my enterprise, I'm farming out 192, 168, one whatever's. And so it's just been fascinating to see how it just keeps changing. You might be like, oh, you've been in the same job kind of for 25 years, but the reality is we're just chasing this industry, and it reinvents itself all the time. You can't get bored. There's new Wi-Fi standards and completely new ways these technologies are being applied every couple of years. And so there's just, we're constantly just chasing the new technologies. For example, right now chasing the 6 gigahertz spectrum and 802.11ax.
Yeah. So one point that you touched on throughout is everything, all the tests, the 10-second test that you can get back so much information. So, it's one thing to just test a cable. If you put together a cable and you want to make sure you got the colors matched on both ends, the pinouts matched on both ends, there's a tool for that. But if you really want to test your network, and let me tell you, the first time I used one of your products, I plugged in my network cable into the EtherScope and I ran the test, and I was so amazed to see, not only could I tell that I was getting a link, but it showed me things like I got a DHCP address in, a couple of milliseconds. It told me where that DHCP address came from. So verifying it's, an enterprise DHCP server versus, a non, approved one or rogue one, right? And then it did a call out to google.com. I could see so much information, so much more information than just a basic cable tester. So there's definitely a right tool for the right job. And you guys have a wide array of products that will give you that right tool, right job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As networks have grown and you find more and more applications, there's just different ways that organizations structure, in terms of technicians, engineers, mid-tier technicians, right? And so kind of having the right product for all the different people. And then even for the technicians, right, even down to our link printer, right, for a few $100, we did that because of the growth of PC technicians, right? Help desk technicians, right? And they get called out. My PC's not right. To be able to take that, unplug the laptop or the desktop or whatever the device is, plug that thing in and immediately triage your problem to, is it the network or is it the PC? And so, we just try to really focus on fast answers, actionable results, being able to share those results with others. And I tell you, there's a lot of features in the product under the hood, that you wouldn't even know until you bumped into the problem. So I'll give you 2 examples. One is on DHCP, and this is something you wouldn't get. These are the kinds of things you can't do on a laptop or a PC or a phone, right? So when we send out the DHCP offer and discover, and we get offers back, we're actually listening for multiple offers. And so if we see that a second offer come back, we will actually show you what that offer was and who sent it to you. And in fact, you can even do a path analysis to them and determine where they're plugged in. It kind of goes back to that somebody accidentally plugged in a second DHCP server, right? Because DHCP gets served out of a lot of little network devices now. And so that's a wireline example of a feature that we have. On the Wi-Fi side, you've got channel changes, right? All these APs are supposedly getting smarter about radio resource management, smart air, whatever you want to call it. But basically they change channels if they think there's a better channel to be had, right? It's a sort of an AI-ish provisioning sort of thing, but yet we'll walk into a facility and So when we're watching a BSSID, we're also keeping track of what channel it's on and how many times it's changed channels and what channels it's changed to. Is it just going between 1, 6, 11 or is it just back and forth? And that's the sort of thing that indicates sort of thrashing in an environment. The only reason the AP is going to change is because something weird's going on the channel. But that having that history and then of course everything we do, all this information gets pushed to Link Live, which is our cloud repository for everything: AutoTest results, captures, screen captures, discovery snapshots, you name it. If you can do it on the box, it goes to Link Live. It's a very collaborative tool. You can invite as many people into your organization as you want. We're not charging per person or things like that. And in fact, even enhancing that. And right now, we're working on a feature that'll be out, in fact, in a couple weeks, which is sharing results. The inspiration for that was actually Google Photos. Because you start to realize you've got these photos, but then you want to pick these 3 and share up to this person. You want to pick that, and then a week later you're picking another set of things and sharing them out. And so basically, you as the owner of all of these results, no matter what they are, it could be surveys, discoveries, captures, auto test results. You just sort of pick them and say, and add them to an album, and then share that album out. And that could be to a vendor, it could be to another site, to whoever you want. And they just literally click on the link and can go in and see them as if they're getting a slice of your version of Link Live. And so really trying to, realizing that collaboration is a big part of the solution, sharing your results, and it shouldn't be this Herculean effort. So, so it's not just the streamlining of the test results, it's also the streamlining and just the management of the whole process that we try to bring to the table.
So could this be something where, like, if let's say if I'm a network engineer and I have a site that's having some weird issues, and we send out a technician with this tool, they can run all the tests that they need to, and then they could share that up there, and then I could have access to that so that I can just kind of analyze whatever their results are with that?
Yeah, that's correct. In fact, there's a bunch of ways to collaborate. As you look at some of our tools, you actually, through Link Live, you can also do remote access to the tool. And you can see, so you could be sitting there as the engineer, literally seeing the same, let me back up a little. Most of our tools also have a separate management radio or Ethernet port in addition to the test port, right? And so with that management plane, however you connect to it, you've got the ability then in Link Live to remote in and see the screen. And so you could even be watching the relatively unskilled person at the site, and you can either be saying, "Hey, walk over there," then you press, and then you can press the buttons as the engineer, or you can be watching what they're doing. So you can do kind of on the job education. You can sometimes you just need the body, putting the product in the right place, right? And so we support everything from that to just kind of watching what they're doing, so just a lot of ability to collaborate. And as I mentioned, just networks are everywhere, right? But especially during COVID, it's been difficult to travel, and so this ability for the results centralized, even the Another simple example of that is you're an engineer in a school district. You got 2 or 3 technicians, and one of the as these AutoTest results are coming up, you can in Link Live say, I want an email every time one of these comes in with the results. And so now, as the technicians are running around, you almost have like a Fleetmatics. You know what they're doing. Oh, I sent him out to that school. I just saw 3 test results come in the last 2 minutes. And furthermore, you're seeing them in your inbox because we show you the actual results. So you can be like, oh, you know what? That's a weird DHCP address. I wonder if that's, oh, why did you plug into that VLAN? Oh, something's not provisioned right. And so we just continue to refine the product line, trying to address the modern problems that people are having in terms of network complexity, lack of skilled workforce, chasing technologies. I'm just keeping up with that stuff. Network always being blamed, and just on and on. It's pretty daunting to be and it's all just that much more mission critical now, because when there's a network problem, it's the lights don't work, we can't get into the building, the HVAC's wonky, I can't produce, manufacturing lines down. It's far more than just I can't get my email and I'm going to take a coffee break.
Yeah.
James, can you give us a quick tour of Link Live?
Sure. Yeah. You log in, and we basically organized, things are organized here in our navigation drawer. You can click here and kind of see that. But here we have AutoTest results, unit management, asset management, remoting to units, files. Files can be anything from screen captures to, for example, a screen capture to performance test results to log files showing how I connected to a particular network, on and on. And so, and captures, of course. Just to give you an idea how simple a workflow can be, although I'm only sharing my tab here, like this capture came off the unit, and then you can just say export, and it comes right down, and I could click right there and literally launch into Wireshark or whatever my tool of choice is. So
like that.
Files is all that stuff. Air analysis is where you can understand all the devices in your network and what they're doing, be they wired or Wi-Fi. You can also do topology mapping. And then AirMapper is for site surveys, Wi-Fi site surveys. So, but AutoTest, we talked about that a little bit. So here's a bunch of results. In fact, you can see I've got 7,300 results here. We have a lot of nice, easy filtering. So 7,300 results. I'm connected to this switch. If I just wanted to see all results in my history that were connected to that switch, you literally can click on any blue link. We add the, in fact, I'm on my dev stack here, so here's the a little bit of a bug there, but basically the name SG, James SG300, and I filter down to just that particular switch with, 1,700 results, take that off. But your ability to sort of filter between, here you can see, got a lot of failures here, but things that have passed, failed, warnings, and so this ability to kind of filter on only things that passed on these calendar dates or this particular date or this date range that have this particular tag. So even though I've got thousands of results, it's fairly easy to navigate through them and find any previous results, and then anything you filter down to, you can just come over here and say, hey, I need to get these 3 results out. And so typically the way we've done this is, hey, I'm going to generate a PDF report or generate CSV if you're kind of a roll your own report guy, or you want to do more analysis in Excel. And so we've got that, and we're just adding a new feature now where you can basically add these things to an album. So you can basically add to an album, give it a name. Let's say you're having an issue here. You need to save it with the vendor, add it to the album, and then basically share the album out to anybody, just very much like Google Photos. And so a lot of ability here to manage your AutoTest results. Your in the unit management, we talked about this a little bit, is the collaboration part, right? So here's my unit, it's remote. I can come in remote into this, and this could be any of your units anywhere in your enterprise. So, this will go through NAT on both sides, right? I'm at home, I got to go through NAT. You've got into a building or a site or whatever, you got to go through NAT. And then then I can basically manage the unit. And so AutoTest, for example, is right here. In fact, here's a variety of profiles. It's another speed saver, time saver is as you go between networks or things that you want to validate, you don't have to configure stuff on the fly. We have this notion of profiles. So I want to test my to this AP or this SSID. I want to force it to 2.4 gig. I want to force it to 5 gig, and then this. But here for example is a wired profile. And all the results are there, right? Everything from layer 1, PoE, and we'll show you the power requested, received, and if it fails, why. Link, speed and duplex, and if you're linking on N-base-T, we even show you signal to noise ratios. Switch information, we show you every possible definition. You mentioned CDP, but the reality is this switch is producing there's CDP right there, and that was the first advertisement we saw. And then here's all the CDP information, but the switch is known by other advertisements, right? There's LLDP, and what's interesting is you'll see how even like the model string is different between this is a Cisco switch between what they send out for CDP and LLDP is different, and so you'll get different information from different things. And then at the same time, I also know the switch through SNMP, and so we try to show you all that information about where you're plugged into, right? Because a lot of times the wiring, cable maps are obsolete. Wiring is spaghetti, hard to know what's going on. DHCP come in, and here you can see. We're giving you things like lease times, and we also help break it out, right? Was it in this case it was the time to get the initial offer, right? And then the acknowledge went fast, and so that means the DHCP server is probably a little bit busy because I sent it to Discover. It took it a little bit. Let's see, DHCP. Next thing is DNS. You need to be able to, so in this case, I'm looking up Google using the DNS servers I was given, and then here's the time. There is no DNS2 here. Let's see, let me scroll down a little bit. Then we have the, bring it down a little more. Then we have the gateway, reaching that, how it's configured, and all that. That's kind of getting to the edge of the building, and then you go into service tests, right? And this is a good example of where we really help. The network's always going to get blamed, but when somebody says, the website, it's slow, the network's slow, right? They're in their browser, they're seeing something, but what's really slow? As we know from all the DNS outages, it could just be a DNS. It can be a DNS issue, right? So we break down the entire process of pulling a web page, which is first you got to convert to an IP address. Then you need to do a TCP connect to that IP address, right? That's where you kind of do the SYNAC, and then data start. Data start is you sent a request. Hey, give me this HTTP page, right? Well, how long did it take for that server to utter the first bytes back to you, right? That speaks to, because it might be that the server is loaded down, and so that speaks to we have a nice pie chart here. I should show you that, but that speaks to how long did it take for the server to acknowledge this, and then data transfer. Now we're back, data transfer. Now we're coming back into the network side, right? How fast was the network transferring the data? And so we try to break down the whole process so you can immediately see that if they say the network's slow and you go out and you plug in and hit their URL, you're like, oh, you know what? It's a data start issue. Obviously I spent very little time doing the DNS lookup, so that's not a network issue, not a network issue, not a network issue. It's go talk to the server group, right? And so it kind of shows how we just help you triage what's going on there, and you can add as many targets as you want here in terms of testing multiple services. You can get on, these profiles could join on multiple VLANs if you wanted to if you wanted to do that. You can connect to multiple SSIDs. And then on top of all this, as we all know, network problems are often intermittent. You can take whatever this profile is, you can choose to run it over and over again. So you've got this ability here, let me go back over here, to say, hey, I want to test periodically, and I want to test every minute, and I want to do that for 24 hours or for 1 hour or over my lunch break or whatever, right? And literally we'll sit there and just run that test over and over again.
Wow.
And then in Link Live, it's fairly easy to see, to find those results and look at them, and understand, it was out for these 3 minutes, or and truly understand. So periodic auto test is just a really handy way to for you to not be sitting there testing over and over again, and just let the tool do the work and save you a lot of time.
Yeah, that sounds like, if you're having a kind of an odd intermittent issue, right? And so you could just leave this device sitting on that network and just sit there and auto test for, like you said, for a day or two or something. And then it sounds like it can upload all this to the Link Live there. And then you can just kind of, like you were saying, hey, for between 2 and 3, we were having this issue, but no other time, right? And then that can kind of hone down, okay, what might be the issue during that time.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because we'll sit there, you literally filter out to just that auto test group. In fact, I think if you look at this one, you'll see that I was testing every minute. I'm looking at the timestamps there, over and over again. And so, it's kind of nice. In fact, you can take this and export it to a spreadsheet and see all these things broken out in columns, and then, immediately identify issues. And so just a lot of ability to manage that and see what's going on. In fact, I could have been filtered on this and then said, okay, now show me only the ones that had issues, and so out of a bunch of those periodic auto tests, only 23 had issues, and then I can just kind of come here and say, well, okay, you know what? It was just that the gateway wasn't good. We're looking down here, right? Because we were trying to ping it 3 times in a row. The gateway just wasn't responsive. That's the only issue here, was that the ping was a lower priority job for the gateway, and so that ability to filter, slice, dice, analyze, compare all your results, generate reports, share them with your peers.
And one thing I like to add too is that it does all those different features that it has, the tools and whatnot. But what I really like about this Link Live is it organizes all this chaos. That's what I really like about this right here, because I've ran tests in the past where, I'll have a technician run some app on their phone or something like that. They'll give me a screenshot. They'll send it through email with no title in the email header, I've been in situations like that, and so this right here is just beautiful how it just puts it all together. It organizes it, and it gives timestamps, it gives names. That's wonderful right there.
Yeah. In fact, what's kind of neat is you can even search. You can even do a free string search. So I haven't really thought about this, but if I just wanted to do, Cisco, I can start to, come in and just immediately, get to those results that were tagged. And so. And if you're a little more old school, you can put things in folders, right? But nowadays the proper way is to have tags. And if you're looking at anything, you just say, hey, looky here, and in fact, hey, there's a tag I already used, Jordan, looky here, because I shared the results and I wanted him to take a look at that, right? And so tag things, find them later, organize them, and slice and dice through your data. I don't know how many test results I have on this particular SSID. This is the Raleigh-Durham Airport, but I can just come in and click on that and be like, oh, look, I had 7. I did 7 tests there, right? And they could have been over different days, times. In fact, they were. I was in the airport both in May and in March. And so just and in fact with different units at different times. And so, just a lot of ability to slice, dice, organize, and collaborate.
Yeah, I could see this where like if you've got 200 remote offices or whatever, and you are running tests at different ones, and you're like, hey, I need to check back at Office 20 there and see what were some of the tests that we ran there. You could just easily search that. That's awesome.
So James, I want to make sure for anybody watching that this isn't lost on anyone. When you were screen sharing there, you were actually connected to a device that you have that there with you. Can you hold that up for people to see on the camera? And so in this scenario, you're remoted into a device that you have in front of you, but you could have smart hands at a remote location that's doing this for you, and you can remote in and continue to do that troubleshooting and look at the data that the device is then pulling for diagnostic information. So that I think that's one of the super coolest features about NetAlly.
Yeah, in fact, we have a lot of people that do that. In fact, I've heard the word smart hands used by a couple of our customers, and it's exactly that, right? So so one of the nice things is if you can see the unit and you can see the remote screen here, you can see that I can either be running a remote telling my technician, oh yeah, hey, this doesn't look right. Go check that particular result. Why is that only a 100 megabit port? But at the same time, I could be watching them doing their thing. And so you kind of have this on the job sort of training thing, and literally can be as simple as just having somebody plug the unit in, and then you just run it completely remote.
So today we've learned a lot about who NetAlly is, the problems they solve for us as network engineers, and the collaboration that they enable with their tools through Link Live. Our guest today was James Kahkoska, CTO of NetAlly. James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for the time, and thanks everybody for joining us.
And if people want to learn more about NetAlly, where can they go?
NetAlly.com.